If you've been in any of our other sessions, this session will be run a little different because we wanted to get these tips basically out to you quickly. We want you to learn these things fast, so we tried to make them as basic as we could, but just some things that we actually use as a team that we feel like would be really helpful for you to know as a teacher. And just we'll go through them as quickly as possible, and then we'll talk about them at the end. So here's our top 10 googly tips for you guys. Number 1 is snoozing email messages. Now, I'm going to say that I use this one on a daily basis. So if you're not ready to answer an email, or you know that an email needs to be seen maybe later in the week, you need a reminder for that email. When you look in your email messages, if you hover over the messages, and you've probably seen these icons before, the first icon here is archiving the message. That's just it's not going to delete it, it's just going to put it into all mail. The next one is a trash can that will delete the message. The third one here is the read or unread icon. And then finally, we have snooze. And what snooze is going to do, it's going to take that email out of your inbox and it's going to send it back to you at a time that you decide later. So for instance, I had an email from Ann Marshall that I knew I wasn't going to need until today. So I clicked snooze, I chose today at 8 a.m., and it's going to actually give you some suggestions. So it's going to make it really easy for you to snooze some of those messages. You could even pick a date and time, a specific date and time. Sometimes I get an email 3 weeks before I actually need to do anything with it. And so I can just snooze that message and then be able to send it back to myself at a later date, which is awesome. So it's like built-in reminders for you in your email. So speaking of email, we're going to look at scheduling messages now. So I don't know if you guys know that this is available for you, but next to the send button in your email message, next to the send button, there's a little arrow. And if you click on that arrow, it allows you to schedule a message, which is awesome, especially if you're looking at constant communication with parents and students right now. Scheduling messages is going to be crucial. This will allow you to fully write the email address or email message ahead of time. And then similar to snooze, you'll get an option to schedule it at a specific time. There will be an area for your scheduled messages. It will be over on the left-hand side, similar to where you see your inbox and all mail and spam and trash and that kind of stuff. You will see an area for your scheduled messages. So you are able to still edit that message and save it and then still send it as your normal scheduled email. So moving out of Gmail now, we're going to go into Google Drive, because I think, we have been talking about Google Drive for 5 years now, but the sharing settings are still confusing. There's a lot of options in there. And so what do they all mean? Okay, we're going to go through each of these things. These are the same sharing settings that you'll see across the board with all of our products. So this is really, really good, important information. We typically stick to 3 sharing settings. I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. So the bottom is the most restricted. It says off and specific people, which means that it's currently just going to be shared with you, or you have typed in somebody else's email address and it's just shared between the two of you. It's the most restricted, and most of our documents and presentations and that kind of stuff default to off and specific people. It would not default to this if you had put it in a folder that you had also shared. So speaking of which, you can share folders this way as well. So if you share a folder, and this is what we recommend maybe for your web page, if you're putting resources out for parents, share the folder with the top one on anyone with the link. And that means everything underneath that or everything inside that folder is automatically shared for you. So let Google do the work for you. So moving up here, the next option we have, and many of us use this, if you click that get shareable link, and I know some of you know what I'm talking about, get shareable link, it's going to default to this. anyone at TSC with the link can view, which means that the teachers and students in our corporation are able to access that content. For some of us, that's going to be enough. However, if we're looking at opening communication with parents and making sure that they're on the same page as their students, that won't be enough. Same thing with our web pages. If I have a teacher web page, I want to make sure that it's shared outside of TSC. Unfortunately, things default to within TSC, and we actually have to change it so that it's outside of TSC. And I'm sure many of you have been running across that over the last several weeks. And then finally, the second from the top, this is what I say, this is what I recommend for teachers if they don't mind things being outside of TSC or available outside of TSC, is this fourth one here. On anyone with the link, and then it's going to default to can view. That's parents or other people outside of TSC are able to access your content. They have to have the link in order to access your content. The top option here, we typically stay away from, but this would make your content searchable within Google. So on public on the web, that's the difference between the top one and the second one. Top one is going to be searchable. The second one is going to be just anyone with a link. So we really stick to these three, and those are going to be, that's going to cover 99% of your needs in terms of how you're going to share items within Google. The next one here is moving over to Google Calendar. So as you're creating events, and some of you might be using Google Calendar now more than you have in the past, but as you're creating events, you are able to add guests to calendar events. And these guests do not have to have a Google email address in order for you to add them. They just need to have an email address. Once they get that email, they'll be able to then add that event to their calendar and accept that event. But as you're creating your event, if you click on more options inside calendar, you're able to, on the right-hand side, add some guests to that event. Once your guests are in there and they begin accepting that invitation, you can see here, this one has 24 guests, 16 people have accepted, and 8 people were waiting for an RSVP. On the right-hand side here, I have an email icon, which means that I can email all the guests that have been invited to this event, which makes it very easy for me to create some groups, especially if we're going to be meeting on a regular basis. I'm able to do that. So that's within more options on your calendar event. Then any updates that you add to that calendar event will then be reflected on their calendars as well. It's just a really great way to manage your schedule along with the other people that are with you. As a reminder, students have access to Google Calendar. So this could be a really great resource, even moving into next year, to help students manage their time and be able to put some events on their calendar. So we're going to stick in calendar for this next one. The next option here is sharing a calendar. So there's a few different times that you would maybe want to share a calendar, or on the flip side of that, maybe you want to make sure that your calendar isn't shared too much. So when you create your calendar, the calendar that is created for you, let's say it's just your default TSC calendar. On the left-hand side of Google Calendar, you're going to see all those calendars listed, and one of them will be your name. Next to that, you'll see 3 dots, and you'll be able to go to settings and sharing. And in this area, we'll see what permissions do other people have to view my calendar. Now, this screenshot here that you guys are seeing is a calendar that's public. It's a public resource sort of calendar, something that we want anybody to be able to access and be able to see the availability of that calendar, as well as all the event details. So this is sort of like maximum publicity in this calendar. My personal calendar does not look like this. So it hasn't been made public. In terms of make available for TSC, that middle option there, you might want to make available for TSC, and this is going to be a drop-down menu, and you can actually just say show free and busy. So I might share this with my building secretary, with a coworker, somebody else in my grade level, so they can at least see when I'm free and busy, so they could find a meeting time with me. But it's not going to make all those event details or the event titles public. They won't be able to see any of that information. If I do maybe have a resource calendar or I've created a class calendar, I know some of your buildings have professional development calendars that are this way. If I create this public calendar, I do want to make it public and I want people to be able to see it. Down at the bottom there, and we're familiar with this phrase, get shareable link is going to be down at the bottom, which will actually give me a link to that public calendar to be able to share with people within TSC and outside of TSC. So there's some really easy ways to share calendars, as well as easy ways to sort of lock down some of the content that is on your calendar. The next one we're going to move into is Chrome sign-in versus Google sign-in. We're getting this a lot with students as well. So if you want to, and I've shared the slides with you guys in the outline, but this might be good information to send to parents that are maybe having some problems, because I know we have a lot of Google Chrome users outside of TSC. So there are really two sign-ins that happen inside of our Google universe. So the first sign in and the top layer of signing in is Google Chrome. That is going to be in the top right-hand corner of your browser. You're going to see a little person or your icon, and you can see it over here in my screenshot. So this here next to my extensions is going to be my Google Chrome sign in. That's going to make available my bookmarks, my extensions, my browsing history, that kind of stuff. So it's my browser sign in. If I sign into Google Chrome, it does sign me into everything else. It signs me into all of my Google things because it remembers those settings. Now I can also just sign into Google, which is this icon down here closer to the bottom. This icon is going to sign me into my available apps. If you've heard us talk about the waffle before, or these 9 dots here, those are the apps. That's Gmail, Calendar, Drive, Docs, Classroom, those sort of things. That's signing me in there. That's my Google sign in. When we're looking at helping parents understand the difference between the two, if a parent is signed into Google Chrome and they click on that icon, they are able to add another person to their Chrome, which means that they can have their Chrome sign in and their son or daughter could have their Chrome sign in. As a parent, I actually do that with my son. I have my Chrome sign in, he has his Chrome sign in, which means that our bookmarks and our browsing history and all that stuff is separated. We also have the option to browse as a guest in this area. If you guys would like me to show you what that looks like after this presentation, let me know. Just go ahead and put a little note in the chat and I'll show you what that looks like. But this is going to be really important when we're looking at people sharing devices within a household. Chrome sign-in versus Google sign-in. We're going to stick in Chrome for a little while here. And the next option is, and I know you guys can't raise your hands. I wish I could see your faces right now, but how many of you have seen the green up arrow in your Chrome browser? So in the top right-hand corner where we sign into Google Chrome, there's this green up arrow, and it doesn't give us any other warning besides that green arrow. You maybe also have seen like an orange exclamation point. And that area is really like, I would almost call it like notifications from Google Chrome. That green up arrow is going to be really important though, and it needs your attention immediately. Personally, as soon as I see that, I click on it and I do what it needs me to do, which is updating Google Chrome. So when I click on that little arrow, it's going to say, you know, there's an update available for Chrome. I click that, and honestly, 30 seconds later, It pops up my screen again. It will reload all those tabs that I had open at the time, and then I'm ready to go. Now, obviously, if I'm in a program that doesn't save automatically and I need to actually physically save things, I'll want to make sure that I save before I decide to update. But this is a good little, it's a red flag sort of, but it's more of like a green up arrow, but it's definitely something that needs your attention. What you might notice too is if your Chrome browser starts acting a little funky, it might need an update. And so you'll want to check in that top right hand corner and just make sure that you are actually clicking on that green icon and updating Chrome if something is available. Don't just let it sit there, actually update things. Our next Chrome tip here is maximizing your bookmark bar. And I believe we've talked about this one in the past at some IIB, but you can actually add folders to your bookmark bar. So I have a ton of bookmarks. I actually try and update my bookmarks periodically just to make sure that I'm cleaning it up as much as I can. But if I right click on my bookmark bar, and if you guys do the same thing, you can do it right now if you're watching this. If you right click on your bookmark bar, you're able to add a folder to your bookmark bar, which is going to allow you to maybe nest some bookmarks together. Additionally, if I right click on a bookmark and I click edit, I can change the name of a bookmark to shorten it. Because as you saw on this example here, when I bookmarked my calendar, it came through as Tippecanoe School Corporation, January 2020 calendar, something along those lines. That's a very long name, and I don't necessarily need that entire name. I can actually rename the bookmark, but I can also delete the name of the bookmark and just the icon is going to show there. So maybe I have a bookmark for Google Classroom and I know what the icon looks like. I can right click, edit, and delete the name. And now I'm just going to have that Google Classroom icon. That's really going to maximize the space that I have available for bookmarks along the bar there. I recommend this to students as well. I think if you are a Chromebook classroom, or if you're going to be a Chromebook classroom next year, this is one of the first things that you show students how to do. Manage your bookmark bar, bookmark things, change the names, delete the names, make sure that they're understanding that they really use that space to get to things quickly, right? What are the things that you do every day? Make sure that they're bookmarked. And I believe this is actually our last tip here, clearing the cache. And you may have heard Chad, Jenny, or myself, somebody has said that to you. Have you cleared your cache? And we might send you the steps on how to do that. Again, this is a really good tip for you and for students. So as you visit different websites, your Chrome browser actually saves some content in this storage. And occasionally this storage makes your Chrome browser not work well, or something that typically has worked starts to not work. And so we recommend clearing the cache from your browser. And how you do that is the 3 dots next to your Chrome sign-in, the same place that we saw that green up arrow. Those 3 dots is going to give you your menu for Chrome. So the first option in that menu you're going to go to is More Tools, and then the next option is Clear Browsing Data. And it's just going to clear out any of that junk that might maybe bogging down your browser. Again, this is a really good tip for you and for students to just learn how to clear the cache on your Chrome browser. It's going to be very helpful for you guys, and maybe might make your Chrome browser work a little better if you're seeing some kind of buggy behavior in there. Oh, I lied. That was not our last one. This might be our last one though. Managing extensions. So, we get all these extensions, or we've been told, hey, this is a great extension. Maybe you don't use it all the time. So I know many of you are using Screencastify right now, and that's great, but maybe you want to hide Screencastify for a little bit. You don't really need it up in your browser, or there's another icon that you were using as a class that you might not be needing anymore. So we're going to go back to that Chrome menu. So the 3 dots in the top right-hand corner. we're going to go to more tools again. And right underneath where we cleared our browsing data, we have extensions. That's going to give you a comprehensive list of all the extensions that you have installed on your Chrome browser. Now I'm going to give you a warning. The more extensions, the more likely you are to have a slower Chrome browser. So we really recommend maybe take like 5 to 10 minutes today and just clean out some of the extensions that you don't really use anymore. Maybe it was something you tried, somebody recommended it, and you don't really like it, so you're going to remove it. When you get to this manage extensions area, you're going to have a couple different options. The first option on the right-hand side here is to toggle it on and off. That's not removing the extension, that's just removing it from that quick bar at the top. The extension is still installed, you can still use it, it's just disabled at that time. The next one we have is to remove the extension. I'd recommend doing this if you don't really use the extension very often. You might remove it. Maybe it's something you use once or twice a year, or like I said, maybe it was something that you use in your classroom, but you're not really using it right now. You are able to remove that extension, and then you can always reinstall it later if you'd like. But I know we have talked about a lot of extensions over the last few years, so you might have some things up there that you really don't need anymore. That can, if you clear them out, might make your Chrome browser run a little better. And that is our last one. Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to head over to the chat right now and see if you guys have any questions.